hello, everyone. Welcome to iCritic Live. This is where we talk about movies, pop culture, and life in between. I'm the film critic for iCritic.net, Kim T. Rodriguez. Thank you so much for joining me today. Now then, let's talk about Barbie, because who isn't talking about Barbie these days? It is the number one movie 4 weeks in a row. 4 weeks in a row, number one. Truly, this is a Barbie world. And, that film has been getting a lot of praise from myself included about how it deconstructs the whole notion of Barbie and challenges the stereotypes of what Barbie is and what it was meant to be, and what does Barbie look like in the modern world. But would you believe me if I told you that there was another film that actually asked these very same questions about 25 years ago? And since Barbie Nation has basically hit America, Barbie Nation, the documentary, is back available, and we are here with the director of that film, Susan Stern, to talk about the film. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you for having me, Kevin. It's great to be here.
Oh, you're welcome. So I rewatched, because I kind of recall seeing this movie years ago, but I bought it on iTunes recently and I rewatched it again. And, it's really interesting how your movie is asking some of the same questions that Greta Gerwig, and no disrespect to Greta Gerwig, her film is brilliant, I think, but she asked these questions that you were asking 25 years ago. So before we talk about the current Barbie craze, I guess the first question I would ask you is, what inspired you to do a documentary about Barbie all those years ago?
Yeah, it's great because actually Susie Bright, writing in the San Francisco Chronicle, said there wouldn't have been Greta Gerwig's Barbie without Barbie Nation, my film 25 years ago. And what's also so cool is that my film was inspired by sort of the same thing that Greta Gerwig's film was inspired by and the Barbie doll was inspired by, and that was my relationship with my daughter. So I had been a journalist. I'd been an investigative reporter for newspapers. I had a daughter. Suddenly Barbie dolls accrued to her. If anyone has had Barbie dolls in your house, you don't have to buy them. They just sort of come to you. And then you put them in a dark place like a cabinet and they breed. All of a sudden you open the cabinet, there's more than you ever remember putting in there. And that's what happened. And then my daughter started playing a game she called Jealous Barbie, where one Barbie doll was jealous of the other. And I said, Nora, women don't have to be jealous of other women, because I was and am a feminist. And she said, okay, Mom, how about if first we play what I want to play and then we can play what you want to play? And I thought that was such a great story. I told people that story, and then everyone started telling me their Barbie story, and everybody had a Barbie story. And, the number one, we talk about, if you're a Barbie doll collector, you talk about the number one Barbie, which is the 1959 Barbie. The number one Barbie doll story is Ruth Handler, who invented the Barbie doll after watching her daughter, Barbara, play with paper dolls. And likewise, Greta Gerwig said, well, all of Greta Gerwig's movies, many of them are about the relationship between a mother and a daughter. And so all three of us were inspired by that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I'm very glad you pointed out Greta Gerwig. She does have that reoccurring theme. So that's a funny first Barbie story, but I have to ask, so when you think back at that, does that mean when you first saw Barbie dolls, did you feel threatened by the dolls? Were you curious about what the implications were? Was it just harmless fun at first?
Well, I was a first generation Barbie doll owner. So I had the 1959 doll when I was 6 years old, which is prime Barbie doll age. But that's the thing with all these, of my sister feminists who are so critical of the doll. I just never took it that seriously. I never felt like these pieces of culture controlled me. I got my Barbie doll. I cut off the hair, had a ponytail. In those days, the hair wasn't rooted, so it was just rooted around the edges, and all the hair fell down. She had a bald head.
Oh.
And I don't remember anything after that. It was like no big deal. Mostly as a kid, I used to my favorite game was to pretend I was a horse and run around. I didn't. And the same with my daughter. She had a Barbie doll, but she could take it or leave it. It wasn't a big deal. It wasn't oppressive.
Yeah. No, it is interesting how people took such offense to what was essentially a doll, like it's like a plastic. And until Barbie started talking, which maybe the critics had a point when Barbie started talking, because I actually been listening to a Walt Disney autobiography, and we're in the silent era where, you know, there was actually fear of making Mickey Mouse talks. It's like, well, once he speaks, doesn't that shatter the illusion? And I do recall that when Barbie spoke, I don't know if there was an illusion to shatter, but boy, did it make people upset.
Well, right. They made her say stupid things. I mean, math class is hard, or, you know,
Which I don't disagree with. I don't disagree with
exactly. It was hard, you know.
I mean, that was like probably the least offensive thing she said was like, math class is hard. It's like, I don't think anyone disagrees with you.
Yeah, exactly. I don't. What else did she say? Do you remember?
I know she said a lot of things about makeup and looking beautiful, and so I think the controversy, of course, was that not only did you have this doll that was projecting unrealistic beauty standards, but now she was talking about beauty and fashion, even though it's like, but the dolls are about beauty and fashion. Even the men that you talk to in your movies, which I was a little I don't know if you just couldn't find any. I was a little disappointed you didn't find any straight men who did stuff with
Okay, that's true. Barbies. We had a few in the man on the street so-called scene, you know, but they mostly, it was like, oh, I shot Barbie down out of the tree, or there was the guy that put cherry bombs in Barbie.
Well, I mean, I didn't really like. I was disappointed there was like a straight man that really loved Barbie, and, you know, says like, I would have been interested to see what they, because, you know, growing up, I loved Sailor Moon, and I almost remember kind of keeping that a secret from most of my friends, because it was like, it's like, oh, they're all watching these action cartoons. I'm like, yeah, I like Sailor Moon, this show with girls in in it, but the stereotypes were real.
That's it. That's really interesting, Kevin. Okay, and you're probably right. Point taken. You know, I should have looked harder for a straight man.
Well, and that's not a criticism of your movie. It was just when I was watching, it's like, boy, I wish that I don't know if you could have found anyone. It's hard to find someone like that today. Like, I mean, I even know most of my friends who've seen the new Barbie movie. They're doing it under the guise of like, yeah, my girlfriend's bringing me to see this. Yeah, my wife is bringing me to see this. And it's like, and I can, it's like, you don't say that and have the advanced tickets 3 weeks in advance.
Well, there's such a funny video about two guys that, you know, are both but I'm here to see Oppenheimer. No, really, I am. It's like, well, what's with the pink outfit? Pink? Am I wearing pink? I'm colorblind. I didn't even know. It was very funny. But my boyfriend liked the movie.
Oh, I like the movie. I liked Oppenheimer better, for the record. But that's also a very different kind of movie. I have to say, for a glorified toy commercial, which maybe you can actually answer, because I've been having an argument with some film critics, because of my fellow critics who like it so much, they're like, oh, that movie is not a toy commercial. I'm like, yeah, it actually kind of is a toy commercial. It was, I mean, unlike your movie, which had which Mattel did not authorize, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But Greta Gerwig's Barbie, like I've argued, like, hey, Mattel set this up. Writers and directors and stars were fired because they weren't on the same page. Nothing happened in this movie that Mattel didn't want to happen. So yeah, I think it is a toy commercial, even if, like the Lego movie, the final product was really good. In your personal opinion, is the Barbie movie a toy commercial?
Well, that is a really good question. And, you know, it is. Yeah. I mean, I think yes and no. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a deep movie. I thought it had deep things to say about sex roles and society, patriarchy, if you will. I thought it had deep things to say about being a human being. I mean, you know, in the end, Barbie chooses uncertainty over happiness. You know, she doesn't stay in the perfect Barbie world. So I thought it was a deep film, and I thought it was a funny film, and I thought it was a politically radical film. But you could say it's a toy commercial, but I would just flip that and say, something I think is really important that I did with my daughter, who is the girl Nora in the film, is from the age of 2, from the age that she could talk, I started, my idea of media education is everything's a commercial. All media is trying to sell you something. You need to always be looking at what are they trying to sell me here?
Yeah. Well, I mean, at the very least, they're trying to sell you a movie ticket. We know that.
Yeah, right. At the very least, they're trying to sell you a movie ticket.
Yeah, that's the bare minimum. So, okay, that's an interesting point of view. But again, this Barbie movie had Mattel's backing. Your movie did not. Now,
Right.
early on, like when you decide I'm going to make a movie where I examine Barbie or something, does somebody early on tell you like, well, Mattel might sue you? Does
Yeah,
that
my
become like
movie
an
it
issue?
was very edgy. My film is Barbie Nation is very edgy.
Oh,
Everything
it's
that
still
Barbie,
radical.
yeah, it's very radical. It's got dirty stuff in there. It's
Hmm.
not for children. Um,
No.
and when I started out, I'm a journalist, so I knew some things and I checked around. And at that point, nobody had made a documentary about Barbie. I called Mattel. That was my first act. And they said, not only they said, well, you're not making a Barbie movie. No, you can't make a Barbie movie. And we're not going to make one either because we don't want to, like you say, we don't want to put a voice or a face or a persona onto Barbie. We want her to be a blank slate for girls.
Right.
So I consulted lawyers and they said, well, we don't know if you can use the word Barbie in your title. Ultimately, I got a legal opinion that said I could. But they said, but you can go around and film people playing with their Barbie dolls. They can't stop you from doing that. And then it was like, this film was the most incredible piece of reporter's karma that I've experienced in a very long career of being a reporter. I went to a Barbie doll convention that was not sponsored by Mattel. That was sponsored by the collectors. They used to have big national conventions. And there were Mattel people there. And I ran into them and we hit it off. And they ended up giving me permission. I ended up sending them forms and they signed them. And they gave me they gave me the Barbie doll commercials. They gave me a reel of broadcast quality Barbie doll commercials. They gave me permission. They let me come to Mattel headquarters and interview them. They helped set up my first interview with Ruth Handler.
Hmm. But there was still a little bit of concern on your end,
Yes.
I hear.
Yes, there was a lot of concern because during that period, which was the late 90s, that's when Mattel sued Aqua over the Barbie Girl song and lost. But at that time, they were also suing everyone. So in my film, in the climax of my film, it shows all these different parts of the Barbie fan world that were either sued or threatened by Mattel. There was a fan magazine, there were dealers, and then all the satirists that were doing really edgy satires of Barbie were threatened by Mattel. I mean, recently Mark Ryden has done, who I love, and I love his Barbies and I love his art, has done an authorized weird Barbie, but that wasn't true in the 90s. Mattel was threatening those people. And I was afraid they were going to sue me. And but I'm very principled as a reporter. I told them I would send them a copy of the film. Of course, there were no links in those days. It was a matter of, mailing them a VHS tape. And I sent it to them like at 5 p.m. on the day that it was premiering. Barbie Nation premiered on PBS's then premiere showcase for independent film called POV. But I wanted to send them the copy right after the courts closed, so they couldn't get a restraining order against the film.
Yeah, I read that story and it's like, oh, that's really clever because if they wanted to say something, by the time they would say it, it would already have been on the air. It
Right.
would have gone by, and
they
yeah.
never did. I never heard from them.
Oh, that's good. Good. That's real. That's really good to hear. Yeah. So there was another. I don't know if you saw this other Barbie documentary. It was on Hulu. It was called Tiny Shoulders, and that actually seemed to have a little bit more inside Mattel as they were trying to redesign Barbie to be a little bit more lifelike. And putting aside the whole debate, like, are we so offended that our fantasy toys have to now be realistic? Did you see that movie, and what did you think of
I have
all
not
that?
seen it. I'm
Oh,
sorry
you
to say.
haven't?
I haven't seen it. I think I will now that you mentioned it. I've read a little about it, and I wondered, was that directly sponsored by Mattel? You know?
So, the way I understand it, Mattel did not sponsor it, but they were very open about providing
Mhm.
access. And that was kind of like my first clue that Mattel was trying to reposition the Barbie brand to be something a little bit different
Right.
than what it had used to be, because the whole concept of that documentary is that basically Mattel was finally going to address the unrealistic body
Right.
complaint. and
Right.
and they did it by the end of this movie, although ironically, because it's not like I go off to the toy section in Target every time me and my wife have to do shopping to look at the toys and movies. It's not like I do that all the time,
Well,
but
I'm sure you don't.
I've never actually seen that doll that's in the documentary in the Barbie section, and it's not like I'm
Oh,
purposefully
interesting.
looking for it, but so it was an interesting movie, but I actually kind of I've still wondered, like, but did they do that just for the movie? And so
Wow, was it ever released?
I mean, I'm sure it was. They didn't even. What's interesting is they didn't even give it like a name at the end. It was just Barbie. But again, I don't see Barbie dolls that look like that. So anyway, I was just curious if you had seen it, and
Yeah, I
because it almost seemed like a logical sequel to your movie in some ways, where it's like somewhat like I could almost imagine you having directed it, where it's like you did this expose about like the conflicted feelings people have about Barbie, and then Mattel addresses some of those
mm,
issues.
mm.
So it's a shame you didn't see it yet, because it would have loved to have your opinion
Yeah,
on that.
the other one that's out there that I have seen that's really worth seeing is called Black Barbie, and
I
that's
have seen Black Barbie.
you have, yeah, and I enjoyed that very much, um, because it's a true thing that children who don't ever get dolls that look like them, that has a real impact.
Well, I remember years ago. This wasn't a documentary. This was a 8 or 10 minute student project that
Mm.
won a bunch of awards. I couldn't tell you what year it was, but it won a bunch of awards, and it got a lot of people talking. And it was simply this filmmaker, and she was African American, putting the Black Barbie and the regular Barbie there and asking all these kids of different ethnicities,
Wow.
which one would you rather play with? And with the exception, I think, of one kid, all of them picked the white Barbie, including the black kids.
Right.
And of course, whenever she asked, so, well, which one looks like you? Well, this one looks like me. And it's like, but why? So why do you want to play with this one? It's like, because they make her look prettier. And it was like, it was, it was a very, it was a very interesting 10-minute
Right.
watch. I could understand why that got people talking
Yeah, yeah,
of,
it's very
about this. And I also briefly remember the Oreo Barbie controversy.
hmm.
And the only, actually, I don't remember. I should mention, I have an eBay store. For those of you who don't even know this, I have an eBay store,
Yeah.
and I buy things from Goodwill all the time. And I saw the Oreo Barbie in a display case for like $2, and it's like, well, it's probably worth at least 10. It says limited edition on it, everything like that. Picked it up, and then I found out it was selling for hundreds of dollars, because apparently this doll had a controversy. And then I realized, once I took a second look at it, that because of like the lipstick and stuff that they used, it was like Oreo, but it almost looked like a mammy doll, a skinny
Oh,
mammy doll.
I have never heard of this. When you say Oreo Barbie, it was like some
It
tie-in
was it,
Oreo
it
cookies?
was a tie-in with Oreo cookies.
Oh, what a
And
bad idea.
yeah, and so like they gave her like white lipstick, and they dressed her in like an Oreo dress, and it was one of those things where it's like, I guess it got out the door before someone raised their hand and said, "Hey, with those lips, it kind of looks like a mammy."
This is a terrible idea. Well, it's like their earring magic Ken. I mean, that remains a mystery. What were they thinking? They made this doll that seems so gay this, Ken with the purple vest and the, think something around him that could be misinterpreted as a cock ring and as an earring. And
Yep. Well, and also their failed attempt to get more guys to buy Barbies. They introduced Ken's best friend Arnold, and nobody bought Arnold. I actually like that the movie acknowledged there's no variation of Arnold because they didn't sell.
Right, those didn't sell. You reminded me now, I remember coming across one straight man who was at the Barbie conventions, who was a collector, but he collected the boxes.
That's interesting.
There are those people, right, that they're into the packaging.
Yeah, no, as someone who was on the spectrum and have friends who are on the spectrum, I have at least one friend who he'll buy books, but he buys them to frame the book covers. He doesn't actually read them. And
yeah.
So I guess we all have our eccentricities, if you will.
Yes.
Yep. So now you said something earlier that I did not know about this movie. You said that it premiered on PBS, and it makes sense in hindsight, but how did that work? Because it actually seems like something that would show up on HBO or Showtime.
Well, I can tell you I've gotten the best rejection letters from HBO. And my distributor currently, before we went out to, TVOD, where, Barbie Nation is on Amazon and it's on Apple TV and it's on Google Play. But of course, they went for the premium stations first. So they went to HBO this time. And, they said they loved it, but it doesn't fit their algorithm, basically. And then
Did they have algorithms back then?
Well, this is the current version. And
okay.
They basically said the same thing in 98 in the sense that it just doesn't, they have these clear ideas of what they do. They do true crime and stuff like that. But POV, it was interesting that they put it on public television, but they did make me censor the doll penises.
That explains so that explains that.
Which I had to do again this time.
Oh, wow. I thought that someone was just being cheeky in those videos. You actually had to do.
I had to pixelate the penises.
Was that you personally, or did you hire someone?
Well, sadly, this time they convinced me to let their lab do it, and I don't think they, and their lab did it. What's really funny, I have another film out on that went up in February on streaming. It's called Bad Attitude: The Art of Spain Rodriguez, who was my late husband, who's one of the Zap cartoonists, one of the underground cartoonists.
I see that one's on Tubi.
Yeah, it's on Tubi and it's on Amazon. And there was so much that had to be censored in that film that I came up with the idea of putting fig leaves on all the art. So it's really, the censorship is really nice. There's like 30 different fig leaves everywhere. Wow. That there's, because Spain, of course, and the underground cartoonists, they did it all.
Yeah, no, I'm sure they were a regular Robert Crumbs, right? Like nothing was off limits to what they could draw.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Well, this movie looks. You hear about the censorship, and it's like, what's the point of the ratings? Like, I was just curious if you did or if someone else did it, because I can only imagine someone like coming home. It's like, so what did you do for work today, honey? It's like, well, I don't think I should tell you in front of the kids.
Right. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, all my movies need to be censored. I'm proud of that, actually.
Yeah. So is there any conceivable way they would ever be released uncut, or is it just not an issue for you?
Uncut, so to speak. Yes.
Yeah.
In Europe, they are.
In Europe, they are.
Because Europeans, Americans apparently don't have genitals. And so, well, like Barbie dolls,
Yeah, like maybe that's why they were so offended by Barbie dolls. It's like, oh my gosh, it looks exactly like me. I'm sorry, Mom. This is usually a family-friendly show.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! Wait,
Okay.
no. Compared to other podcasts I listen to, this is this is nothing. So,
Okay, good.
well, yep. So, anyway, I'm going to ask. I mean, so with it's because of the new Barbie movie that obviously yours kind of popped up and
Mhm.
it showed up in. I said it's like, oh, this sounds like an interesting movie, and that's when I emailed you when you said yes. It's like, okay, great. I'm gonna go buy it.
Good.
I'm gonna watch it real quick, real quick. So, so has interest in your film risen dramatically because of the Barbie film?
Yes, we've gotten because of the Barbie film, Barbie Nation has gotten a lot of attention. I was on the BBC. We were featured in the San Francisco Chronicle. I've been on all kinds of online shows. Yeah, and it's been really great because I think, you know, I got to say, I don't think Greta Gerwig's Barbie or My Barbie Nation is really about Barbie. Barbie is this ideal lens through which to look at and say a lot of things. I mean, I don't even know. You may be right. It's going to be interesting to see if this film does work does sell Barbie dolls, because I'm not sure it will.
Well,
Is it
as
selling
someone who
Barbie dolls?
it has, and in fact, Mattel has even released a strange Barbie toy that's based off the Kate McKinnon
Right.
character, which that's there has been people who have commented like, Mattel, you are missing the entire point of your own movie if you make a toy based on Strange Barbie.
That's funny. That is funny. I just felt like we all are entitled to make our own weird Barbies. Don't take that away from children.
Right. Exactly. But yeah, you're right. In some ways, neither of your films are about Barbie. It's what people perceive through Barbie, how they
Right.
express themselves. That's actually even why some of the men who did play with the Barbie dolls, it's like this was like the most economic way for them to be expressive with their art.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, one of my characters in Barbie Nation became a professional Barbie doll clothing designer. He could do that. He could never become a clothing designer for women. He didn't have those resources to do that. But in the Barbie world, he could design creations, he could sell them, he could make money off of that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
it was,
And he had a very interesting story. It's like, well, I'm glad that making dresses for dolls worked out so well. He's clearly smarter than I am.
yeah, that's right. But I want to say, I think Sailor Moon is very sexy. So that's true too. Like, why wouldn't straight men play with Barbie dolls? Because they're sexy. Probably just because of societal pressure. Can't do it.
Yeah, probably is like now granted Sailor Moon does have the advantage of having a lot of action in it, but but I mean it's like I kind of would have to explain to my dad like, well, that doesn't matter that they're all women. It's like they're great characters and I love them and I love the stakes. I actually, not that we don't want to get too off Barbie, but I give a lot of my nieces and nephews like dolls when they're first born, and it's usually an anime character because everyone else is going to get the Mickey and stuff. So I'll get Totoro and Detective Conan, and most of my nieces I get Sailor Moon dolls. So my oldest niece Ramona, it's like kind of been like, hey, like at some point we're gonna watch this when you're a little older. Finally got to introduce it to her and my two nephews, even though they theoretically should have been 1 year older, but oh well. And they all loved it. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. It didn't even register that this was technically a girl show.
Right, which is the whole question, and I have to say I'm very grateful to the current generation, the younger generation, for really questioning this gender role stuff. Like, what makes something a girl's show or a boy's show?
Right. Why was it okay? Like, it didn't seem strange if a girl would play with G.I. Joes or Transformers or Ninja Turtles, but if a guy played with Barbie, like there was something weird about that.
Right. Or why? So my late husband was a real collector of toy soldiers. He had all kinds of toy soldiers or army men. Some of them were plastic, some of them were the old-fashioned lead ones. Why are those not dolls? Those are not considered dolls.
Even though they function the same way. I mean, you give them props, you dress them up.
Right.
That's kind of the definition of a doll.
Right. It's sort of the same thing, but no, that's not dolls. That's boys' toys. I don't know.
Yeah, it's really weird. I was also because I grew up in that earlier generation. I remember when certain anime would come to America, and then they would edit it in a way to repurpose like the most famous Cardcaptor Sakura, where it's like, oh, this is a series that was, it's pink, it's bright, it is clearly made for girls, but they bring it over. It's like, well, we're gonna cut the first 7 episodes. We're gonna like make the guy the main character, and we're gonna like emphasize the action. And the funny thing was, nobody liked that show. Hated it. Now years later,
Right,
when the edit is all gone and it's only the uncut dub, if you will,
right.
it's like everyone loves it, and it's like you missed a huge opportunity. And I remember at the time even being aware, like, it kind of sucks to be a girl and turn on TV and know that basically the advertisers in the station don't want you to watch their shows.
Right. It's weird what sells. I mean, in the story, one of the things I love about Barbie Nation is there's a lot of Ruth Handler invented Barbie.
Those are some of the best scenes, especially finding out what she did after she left Mattel. I thought
Right, what she did, and also having Elliot Handler in the movie. And Elliot was this incredible painter, and he was one of the first designers in America to do things with lucite. Of course, he invented Hot Wheels. But when they first started, the Barbie clothes were first manufactured in Japan. I mean, and Mattel was one of the first big companies that started manufacturing in Japan, and everything in our generation was manufactured in Japan. It wasn't manufactured in China. But then when they started to sell Barbie in Japan, they thought, well, we'll make this, Asian Barbie, or a Barbie that they will like in Japan. And they didn't like it. They wanted blonde Barbie, so sometimes people want sort of stereotypes.
Yeah. Well, and also, in your film does a good job exploring this. Sometimes the adults are looking at something pragmatically, and they're not looking at it from like the point of view of the child, where the child isn't looking at what are the social implications. It's pretend. It's a fantasy. It's something to play with.
Right. It's a fantasy.
Why did so many of my friends like read superhero movies? Not superhero movies, superhero comics, because superhero movies weren't that big back then. And it's like, yeah, those muscles and stuff were not realistic. We could never hope to achieve them. And I think some scientists even did this like thing where it's like, okay, you could technically be Batman, but your body would probably give out after about a year and a half if you did all the stuff that he did. So this is clearly all a fantasy, but it's like it's fun to escape into that fantasy, and it's fun to pretend. And
right, but then you raise an interesting issue. There's all this concern over Barbie and the unrealistic image she is, and expectations, and the damage to girls. I don't know. Has there been a lot of talk about worry about boys and all this superhero stuff, and is this damaging to boys?
No, although the friend who's the father of the niece and the nephews always showed Sailor Moon to, because the girls dress a little differently in Japan. He did mention like how he felt uncomfortable with some of the unrealistic body proportions, and is his daughter going to pick up on that? And I'm like, you show your kids the Marvel movies, right? And he's like, yeah. And it's like, do you ever get concerned that Felix and Ephraim are going to look at Thor or Captain America, and it's like, man, like, I'm not a good person, or I'm not good looking if I am not like that. Like, does this ever cross your mind? He had to admit it never crossed his mind.
That is so interesting. That is so interesting.
He also said I actually kind of like blew his mind. Like, it's like, oh my gosh, like I've never thought about it, but here I am worried about what my daughter takes away from.
Right.
I don't even think about what this does to the boys, because I never had a date when I was in high school because I was pudgy and overweight, and there was like a little internalizing, like when I saw the guys that the girls swoon over Leonardo DiCaprio, who is an excellent actor, but it's like how do you not get a little upset about that? Because it's like, but that's there are so few people who can look that good.
Right. And it's not even what's interesting about the boys part of it is, so I think there's more pressure. I think it's more important. It still is for women to be pretty than for men to be good looking. Because men have a lot of other things like power going for them. And men are supposed to be powerful. But that would also seem to be hard for men because all these guys are heroes. You have to be the hero. Well, we're not all gonna, that's also unrealistic.
Yeah, what happens if you prefer to be in your room editing videos and reading, and you don't want to go skydiving or anything, or rock climbing,
jumping off buildings and stuff,
Yeah, we all can't be Tom Cruise.
That's right.
Which, on a side note, I love Judd Apatow's comments where he was like, remember when Tom Cruise jumped on Oprah's couch and we wondered if he was okay, and now he's jumping off a cliff and we're like, nah, Tom's fine. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, that's really true.
Perception, I guess.
But let me ask you a question, then I'll answer it myself.
Sure.
I had thought that the Barbie movie, I heard about it, I read about it a couple of years ago. And so obviously I decided to re-release Barbie Nation, and I had to do a lot of work to re-release it. We cut a new scene into Barbie Nation that was left on the cutting room floor back in 98. I had to find a distributor. We had to get it online. But I didn't think it would be this big. Why is it become such a juggernaut?
I think there's a few reasons. One, people are genuinely curious about what a Barbie movie would look like. Two, it's a genuinely good movie. It's not as good as Oppenheimer, folks. It just isn't. But it is good. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars in my review. And then the third thing, and this is a lesson that you'd think Hollywood would learn at some point, and they never seem to. There's a lot of women out there who will buy tickets if you make movies for them.
Yes, amen. That's the part that makes me so excited about the success of Greta Gerwig's Barbie.
I mean, Sarah Jessica Parker pretty much said as much when Sex and the City, the movie, the first one, not the second one, because the second one was terrible, but the first one, it was good and it was geared for women and it made a lot of money. And people asked her, why was it a big success? And she's like, because there's like 500 million women out there and you don't make movies for them.
That's right. That's so right.
Yep. I remember when me and my dad went to see Sex and the City, the movie, we were the only 2 guys there. It was all women.
Yeah, that's so right. That they don't make a lot of movies for us. And they don't give that many women directors the power to make big movies.
Yeah, I even point out this hypocrisy with Disney films because we're huge Disney fans. We had a Disney themed wedding. Beauty and the Beast is our song. That is the song we dance to. So we love Disney movies. And I have pointed out to people, like, have you ever noticed that, like, when it's Wreck-It Ralph, the movie's Wreck-It Ralph. When it's Aladdin, the movie's Aladdin. When it's well, I don't think Strange World had like that was just a general title, but like, have you noticed like these when it's a male in the lead character? Oh, John Carter. If it's John Carter from Mars, John Carter. But when it's like Rapunzel, we can't call it Rapunzel. We gotta call it Tangled. And when it's the Snow Queen, we can't call it the Snow Queen. It's got to be Frozen. Like, it's like, okay, so got movies that have males as the lead characters, they can have their name in the title, but when it's a girl that's featured in the movie, it's an adjective.
That's such a great observation. I have not heard anyone observe that. That seems true. And it seems true for the obvious reasons that we're saying, that somehow they don't think the female audience is important. They don't think we can lead into the theater.
Yeah, well, and I know that one of the reasons they do this is because they, when The Princess and the Frog underperformed, they did a survey and a lot of young boys said, well, we will not see a movie because princess within the title. And I'm kind of like, is that the reason it bombed, or did it bomb because 1 week later Avatar highest grossing film of all time for a long time, opened up.
Right.
So, I mean, you know, I sometimes, but I like what Brad Bird said, the director of Iron Giant and Incredibles, where someone asked him about, you know, why were some of these marketing decisions made, and he said, "So look, I just want to start off by saying I love my job and I love what I do, but these Hollywood suits really learn the wrong lessons from things. If there were 5 movies in a row that all made a lot of money, and in each movie there was a guy wearing a red shirt in them all, then what Hollywood would take from that lesson is, oh, so people want to see movies where the hero is wearing a red shirt."
Right.
And you know, Mattel is learning this wrong mistake with the Barbie movie right now, because the lesson they should be taking from Barbie is like, we made a good movie, we hired a talented writer and director, we gave her, maybe we put some strings, we gave her enough leg room to share her vision, we let them poke fun at us a little bit, and she made a really good movie that people came out and saw, and that's why we're so successful. Also, we're tapping into a market that is typically not targeted, but no, the lesson they said it brought out of this was, we're making a Barbie cinematic universe, we're making the Hot Wheels movie, we're making the Polly Pocket movie, we're making the Uno movie, and it's like, Uno. Although, in all fairness, Tetris on Apple TV Plus was pretty great.
Oh, that's interesting, you know, and I wonder if they will do that. And I wonder if those other movies will be, if they, you know, who they got making the Polly Pocket movie. They've got
so the Polly Pocket movie,
Lena
Dunham.
Like Lena Dunham.
And I don't like Lena Dunham.
Not a fan.
No. I did like Tiny Furniture. I actually kind of like that movie.
Yes.
But I did not like That Girl's TV show.
Yeah.
And for anyone who forgot, I'm not saying I didn't like That Girl's TV show. The show was literally called Girls.
Yes.
It was on Showtime. I didn't like that show. I don't think she's a very pleasant person from everything that I've seen. And I mean, in all fairness, okay, that's going with the subversion thing that Barbie kind of tapped into, but if you subvert everything, then nothing is being subverted. At some point, they're going to say, oh, so you're just trying to subvert expectations again.
Right. I mean,
although apparently one of our viewers is interested in Polly Pocket.
Oh, a viewer's interested. Okay, we're good. Well, I'm going to stay open-minded to the Polly Pocket movie. My daughter had Polly Pocket. I couldn't deal with those tiny things, you know, it's just like too tiny.
I as a film critic, I always have to go into every movie like, I hope I enjoy this. I hope I enjoy Smurfs. I doubt I will, but I hope I do.
Yeah. I mean, I think when I think about it too, why the Barbie movie is so successful, and Oppenheimer is pretty successful. I think the moment was right. I think we're just all ready to go back to the theaters. I was so happy to go back to the theaters.
Well, that helped. And, you know, honestly, if these theaters are smart, after a few months, they would actually make Barbenheimer an official double feature bill. Like, kind of just bring that back. And thank goodness there's at least one lesson that Warner Brothers is taken to heart, because people ask them, like, so when is it going to be on Max? And they're basically like, we don't know. Like, it's like, yeah, don't rush this thing to streaming. People are coming out, and it's still fun because I go to a couple movies every week. We just saw The Haunted Mansion. Got to film a video review for that. That was significantly less good than Barbie. But, you know, you go in the snack section and you see a mother and her little girl there, and the little girl has pink, and I'm like, Barbie, right? And she's like, yes. Now, here's a question for you as a feminist and a mother, because unless you count my pets, I'm not officially a dad yet.
Okay.
Soon, I will have my revenge on the world, but is this Barbie movie appropriate for kids? Because
Mm.
people have asked me that, and I'm kind of like, no, I don't think it is. But then
Oh,
I see parents taking their
yeah,
kids. I also don't think a lot of the Marvel movies are appropriate for
yeah.
kids, though. I'm kind of like, why can't you show them something a little bit more substantial, something that moves slower and doesn't have so much noise in it before their brain
Hmm.
is developed? But well, now I'm going on a tangent. Do you think this is a family movie?
I have recommended, I've had people ask me that. I have told people it's okay to take your kids. And then I got feedback. I have a friend actually who lives in Oaxaca, Mexico,
Hmm.
Mexican woman. She has an 8-year-old daughter and a 10-year-old son. The daughter really wanted to see it, and she didn't know if she should take her. So she took both kids. I told her, and this is my philosophy again, when there's no sex in this movie and there's no real violence. There's some discussion of genitals.
Right. Yo, yeah, I guess it depends whether or not the parents want to explain what a gynecologist is. At the
That's not that hard to explain.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think most of the things that were double entendres, they just go over kids' heads. Kids don't even know. They're not even going to ask you. They might ask you what a gynecologist is. That's easy to answer. My friend said her kids who are really into rollerblading just love the rollerblading scenes, and they love how funny the Mattel executives were when they try to rollerblade. And they found a lot that was funny in the movie. The kids loved, even the little boy loved the movie.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
Yeah.
See, I wouldn't recommend it to kids just because it's like I kind of think the ideas are almost too big for a movie for kids. I kind of think of those direct to video movies that they make where it's like, oh, Barbie's the nutcracker, or she's going to be a rock star, or they're going to space. It's like, yeah, that kind of seems more in line with what kids.
Yeah.
I will say I was very surprised when because I don't watch previews. I hate
Huh.
previews. I don't like how they spoil things. So I wasn't really sure what a Barbie movie was going to entail. And so when I saw it, it's like, well, that was unexpected. I didn't think that was the direction
The
they
previews
were
were
going to go.
incredible, and the Chronicle actually did a story on the editor who did the Barbie trailers because they were so excellent. And he's received a bunch of acclaim and awards for those trailers.
Oh, okay. Well, good for him.
Yeah.
I hope my opinion doesn't offend him. I don't like the movies being spoiled. I think I
Mhm.
hit my limit with How to Train Your Dragon 2. And in
Mhm.
the preview, they revealed that the main character's mom showed up, and I was just kind of like, I would have preferred not to know that happened. And
Yeah.
I was kind of like, you know what? I've got Movie Pass. I'm not paying out of pocket. If I don't like the movie, I can leave, and it's no skin off my back. So why am I
Right.
watching previews?
Right.
And when some people go like, well, the previews make the movie look good. It's like, well, I hope so. It's a commercial. If they're not selling you on the movie, they're not doing a good job.
Right. Well, you're a connoisseur, Kevin. You're just a cut above us, the average viewer.
Yeah, I will say I am also a little happy that Barbie, well, not only Barbie and Oppenheimer doing so well, because in both these movies you have really different films than we usually see in
Mm.
theaters, and they're making money. And so no offense to Marvel fans, but it actually warms my heart to see these movies making more money than Fast 10 or Indiana Jones or the
Yes.
latest Ant-Man movie, because these movies in their own ways are just so much more challenging
I
than
agree. I
these
mean, the
other.
whole point of movies to me, to me, that what we're seeing on television, which is very high quality
Mhm.
television, but they're serials or sequences. They're not like movies to me. To me, they're like visiting with friends. You invite these people in your house. You see these people every week more than you see your friends. It's a whole different experience. To me, there's something about a movie being a one-off. It's like a
Mhm.
living human life. It's born, the curtain goes back, you got your credits, and then it's over and it's done. And there's something, so all these Marvel movies, all these things that are essentially serials, that's something different.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think Martin Scorsese said it best. He's like, they're theme park rides, and You
Uh-huh.
know, he's not, you know, he never said that meant they were bad. It's just, you know, you're going there to get the thrills and the excitement, but, you know, you don't really think about them that
Mm-hmm.
much
Mm-hmm.
afterwards. The great Roger Ebert, who inspired me to do what I do, and also helped me realize that movies can kind of be a tool to understand the world a
Mm-hmm.
little bit better. Said, I don't know how honestly I can say your time is well spent if you see a movie that where the conversation does not extend beyond the parking lot.
That's really a good point. That's
Mm-hmm.
really a good point, you know. And that's what's been so much fun about Barbie. And I think about my own film, Barbie Nation, too. I think it really makes you talk. It makes you argue with people. You carry some of these people with you.
Yeah. It also makes you think about your Barbie story where it's like, yeah, I actually remember playing with Barbie dolls with like some female friends and stuff like that. So it's like that's what it was to me. so
Right.
so you know
Right.
now I think about it, it's been bugging me. So who is the guy in that Barbie Nation poster behind you? I
Oh,
don't
yes.
recall seeing him in the movie.
Well, there's a great story there. There's a guy that looks kind of like this guy in the movie. And I always love this poster because to me it says a lot. It brings up some of the issues around Barbie Nation. It's sort of creepy that this guy has this Barbie with no legs on his hat. It was creepy back in 1998. Um, we actually filmed a guy that looks like this guy at a Barbie festival. So it was a real guy in the documentary, but it was video. And it was, standard definition video, and it was never good enough for a poster. So I actually had I realized my neighbor kind of looked a lot like that guy in the movie. So I staged this photo as my neighbor. And,
Oh.
I tore the legs off my daughter's Barbie and got this hat and put her on there and staged the poster. Well, when we came out with the re-release of Barbie Nation just, a month ago, everybody hated the poster. All of a sudden, this poster in 2023 reads completely differently. Now it's like, manga or something like that. It's really, it was creepy then, I think. It was a
Hmm.
creepy, arguably kind of anti-woman image. But now people see it as really creepy, and my distributor said, "That has nothing to do with Barbie." I would
Yeah.
have argued, but instead we made this new poster that you're using here for your backdrop.
Right, the one with like the lights and
Yeah.
everything like that. In a fact, if people want to see exactly what it is we're talking about,
Yes.
this is what it looks like. This was also where I reached out to you. Did not expect to actually get the director to respond, but
No.
I love it when people like you do. So yeah, that that's a good poster
Yeah,
to
that's our
I will
website.
say it is interesting because I'm gonna bring it back up again
Yeah, let
just
me
so that
just
we
say too that this is, people can go to barbienation.com, and all the ways to stream it are on the website. You can just click on the links,
yeah
and
yeah
that's
it's
interesting. Mhm.
it's on Amazon, which I don't buy from Amazon, but I did get it on Apple TV, Google Play,
Good.
and YouTube. No Vudu. That's my primary video thing, and I didn't see there's no Vudu,
Oh,
so it's like
let me
oh well.
talk
But
to my distributor about that.
yeah, but anyway, yeah. So when you see this, it's like it really does convey the like, okay, we're going like out to talk to people about Barbie, and it's going to be on location, and like, so I understand why the distributors would go with that, and then you have that guy. I mean, it is a little weird.
Is
I don't know if I would have said it was creepy until you pointed it out, but it's like, okay, yeah. It almost looks like a crime documentary um, poster. Like, are we going to be seeing the movie about the guy who went across the world and killed all the Barbie collectors or dressed people up as their Barbie?
Okay, we're talking sequel now, Kevin. We're talking sequel.
we're talking a se- we're talking a sequel. Well, Yeah. So, but anyway, yeah, I was just looking at that poster. It's like, oh, what's the
Yeah.
story behind that one?
Yeah, that was a weird one. Yeah, I mean, my favorite story from making Barbie Nation is the infamous Barbie X-ray, where you do see some Barbies inside someone's body. And I was at a bus stop in San Francisco. And whenever I'm making something, I always talk about what I'm doing. I talk about it to strangers because things come to you. People give you information. And someone at the bus stop said, "Oh, have you heard about the Barbie X-ray?" And I said, "No, I haven't heard." And they proceeded to tell me that there was a healthcare facility that they worked in, and in a file there was this X-ray, the Barbie X-ray, and people would pull it out and giggle. And they smuggled my camera person into the facility and put the X-ray on a light table, and we got images of the Barbie X-ray. Put it back in folder.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering how that happened. Like, was the person literally eating the Barbies? Or...
Eating the Barbies, yes, but we won't say anything more about that.
Oh boy, oh boy. I guess everyone's got to have their own hobby, but geez, I prefer M&Ms personally.
Really, give me the milk duds.
Yeah,
The
or the Butterfingers.
Yeah,
the Butterfinger mini. So,
yeah,
that's funny. You have shared so many fun stories
yeah.
About Barbie. So I guess my last major question in all of this is, did your interest in Barbie ever wane, and did you ever think that it would come back in the way that it did? I mean, Barbie never really went anywhere, but
Right.
let's not pretend it. You don't see people playing with them as much as you used to.
Right, no, Barbie fell on hard times. I mean, I didn't think about Barbie until my daughter started playing with Barbies 25 years ago. And then I made Barbie Nation. Then I got in deep and made Barbie Nation and traveled all over the country filming people's Barbie stories. And that was great. And then I went on, I made some other films. I made, of course, my film Bad Attitude, The Art of Spain Rodriguez has your last name, part of the glorious Rodriguez clan,
Mm-hmm.
is my
Which now I
latest
have to
film.
watch it on Tubi. I'll put it.
Now you definitely have to watch it, Kevin.
Yeah, but
And I'll come back and talk to you about it. But no, I went on and I made other films, and my daughter grew up, and we all went on. And Barbie's, it's interesting you mentioned Frozen. I mean, the Disney princesses defeated Barbie. They were finally the thing that, for the very first time since Barbie's inception in 1959, Barbie was not the most requested doll at Christmas, and that was a major blow to Mattel.
And now Disney gets all the blowback for that Barbie used to get
Right.
there. Yep. There's that huge controversy with this new upcoming Snow White movie where Rachel Zelger, who strikes me as a very nice person, by the way, but she's going like, yeah, my Snow White doesn't fall in love with a guy. She wants to be a warrior, and the prince was a stalker. And there's a lot of people going like, wait a minute, what was wrong with that movie? We didn't see it that way. That way.
Wow. Yeah.
And it's like, so I mean, it's just kind of like, well, I don't know. My personal reaction has been, guys, Disney has remade like 14 of their animated films to live action films. How many of them were good? 2? And of those 2, how many of them were better than the original? Probably 0.
Yeah.
So I don't think this thinking is the problem on why Snow White won't be good. I actually kind of wish that if they were going to remake it, really do something completely different with it. It's like, great. I like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, but I've seen it, and I don't need to see it again and again, only worse.
Yeah, it's true. I'm trying to think if I even saw the live. You mentioned Beauty and the Beast, because I also love Beauty and the Beast, the animated version. Did they make a live action?
They did. Emma Watson was Belle. Admittingly, she, in fact, since you're on, I'm gonna have to see what your reaction is to this. Emma Watson did about as good as she could have done. Like if I was going to picture a live action Belle, she would definitely have been the person I was going to hire.
Mm-hmm.
That is for sure. But when you look at the images, and I'm just looking for one that has most of the cast, because they do exist.
Yeah, I think
out.
the weird part is I think I saw the live action and now I just can't remember it, though I can totally remember the animated version.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, that's a lot of people. I actually might have to share a little story before you go on that one. This'll well, let me share this one little image just because I think this really highlights the problem when you turn to live action. You just lose so much personality. Like, know, the one on the right is the quote unquote live action, but it's like, I mean, who wants? You can't relate to
I did see the live action. Now that you remind me, I saw the live action. It's just like not as cool as the animated version.
Yeah, no, it's not. It has no personality. It somehow is going faster and yet slower at the same time, because it's like they're cutting out, they're trimming the film, and yet somehow the movie's longer.
Right.
And it's
right.
It was like I mean, personally, The Hunchback of Notre Dame is my personal favorite animated Disney film, but I acknowledge that Beauty and the Beast is the best one that they have ever made on a technical level.
But I think this really brings us back to the idea of fantasy and how I think fantasy is so important. I mean, it's, once AI completely takes over, that'll be one of the things that'll be left to being human.
Yeah, well, I mean, they've already kind of been using AI to like make some of the graphics on some of the new Marvel shows. There was like a big stink about it, like, oh, they use AI to make some of these images, and it's like, and yeah, people didn't respond. I mean, they can sense when it's not like when there's no personality in it.
When there's no human touch to it.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So the Beauty and the Beast story I have to share. I have a friend who is kind of my wife's best friend now. And years ago when that movie came out, she posted a Facebook post that said, "This is like my favorite Disney movie ever. Love the music, love how they adapted it. It's the most diverse film Disney's ever made, and it was so much like the animated film." And I can be a jackass sometimes. I responded, "No, you don't like this film. You like what you like is how it's reminding you of the better film, but you would not fall in love with this movie if this had been the first one that came out, because it so lacks the charm and the personality, and even trying to make the fact that Emma Watson said, oh, well, Belle has to be a strong, independent woman, means that she clearly did not see Beauty and the Beast in the first place, because she was. Well, fast forward a few years, we're doing a party. Somehow Disney comes in the conversation. Everyone agrees Beauty and the Beast is the best one. Hey, let's watch it. And they go and they pull the animated film off the shelf. They pop it in, and a couple minutes in, I just kind of turn to my friend, and she's like, "What?" And I'm like, "I am so glad you forgot about your previous favorite Disney film."
Yeah.
I mean, I was probably a little rude in my assessment, but I was correct in my assessment.
You've got to hold to your principles. That's good.
Well, I've learned, just don't insult people personally for what they like. I mean, explain why you personally don't think it works, but I that was just an interesting situation where it's like I can just see what's going on here, and I felt the need to point it out, and maybe it was a little immature at the time, but anyway, so we could talk about all these stories for hours, because I really like talking. I might have to have you on just to talk about random things sometimes.
Yeah, have me on to talk about Bad Attitude. That'll be fun.
You too. I'm gonna definitely watch Bad Attitude, especially since, again, he shares my name, so I'm gonna Spain Rodriguez.
Even spelled the same way, because you're a Guez Rodriguez.
I am. Right? I am a Guez. So So yeah, I will do that, and we might have to do this again sometime. In the meantime, for everyone watching, thank you so much for watching. You can check out Barbie Nation, an unauthorized tour on Amazon, Apple, Google, YouTube, hopefully Vudu at some point. You are going to have to pay for this one, and it's worth paying for, folks. The good things usually are. And so I highly recommend you do that. You know, we might also, if you ever see Tiny Shoulders, I would very, very much be curious if you want to do a follow-up on Tiny Shoulders, because that was a good one. But thank you so much for making time for iCritic Live when you have the Chronicle and the New York magazines.
Well, it was very fun to talk to you. I really enjoyed it.
All right. Thank you. And so for everyone else, you know the drill. Comment below, like, favorite, share, subscribe. And as always, flame responsibly. Have a good one.